This is neither financial nor professional advice. This video is meant for entertainment only. That I'd like to talk about is Shopify, and to contrast that with Etsy. Shopify is S-H-O-P, Etsy is E-T-S-Y. They are both e-commerce sites, but they have a different emphasis. Etsy feels very homegrown. It's a very personalized, customized site where you buy items from individual sellers for the most part, and they ship the product to you. So it's a very personalized, it's almost kind of a gift-giving site, you might say. Shopify, on the other hand, is more related to larger businesses, I want to say. And that's in terms of both the sellers and the buyers. On Shopify, basically you can if you want to sell things on Shopify, you could buy things in China and have them drop shipped to the buyer, and they would never know that it didn't come from you and that you never touched the product. There's problems with that, and if you listen to people that have dealt with Shopify, they almost not to a person, but a lot of them will say that, yeah, it's good to do drop shipping. You can make that a part of your business, but they find that the best response they have is when they have an actual product that they're more closely affiliated with, that they're more personally involved with, that they can put their heart and soul into it a little bit more. I just think it makes a better impression on the buyer if they find out, you drop ship this from China. It kind of changes the whole nature of the interaction. So they are two very different stocks. I bought a little bit of Shopify, and I bought a lot of Etsy. I just like the feel of Etsy better. I just think you're going to have a better customer experience. There's almost no complaints. With buying things from China, you haven't seen the products firsthand. You don't know the quality. You don't know if they're up to your standards, and if this is the sort of thing you want representing yourself to a buyer. I approach this somewhat in the spirit of which approach would I myself like to do. The thing about drop shipping, that's attractive in the sense of not being the hassle, but it's not simple, and I think anyone that thinks that doing the drop shipping route is easy, I think they're in for a surprise. It's not going to be easy, and the only way you make it easier is by making it more expensive, by having other people do things for you that you pay them to do. And so I think you hear lots of good stories, and I think you have to have a knack for it, and I think more so in the case of Shopify. Shopify feels more like a business that has its own website, that wants to use social media, that wants to reach out to Facebook, Instagram, and Google, and reach out and use the social media more. When you go to Shopify, they emphasize the website, and the website. And they have 3 levels. I think the cheapest level for an individual is like $29, and then they got a mid-range one that's in the 70s, and then they got one for large businesses that is in the hundreds. But it can all be arranged, and you can have different drop shippers. I mean, this can be as complex as you want to make it. and they give you a list of drop shippers and so forth. And so you can set up the kind of site you want to set up, and they emphasize having a theme and how to go about it. And so there's lots of tutorials about how to get into this and how to do it right. But it just lacks the personal touch that I feel like I need as a customer, and as I would need as a seller too. I wouldn't feel good about it. You can set it up so that you don't have to touch anything. I mean, if you want to pay the money, you can have. But the question is, there's other sites besides Shopify. One is WooCommerce, WOO, and then Commerce. That's a site that was referred to as being very low cost. Okay, and as you go about this and as you research this, the thought, especially as an individual, if you're going to try to approach this as an individual, the thought will come to your mind, why do I even need Shopify? Okay. With Etsy, it was much more clear to me. I produce the product. I have the product. I do the shipping. It's much clearer. With Shopify, the world is your oyster in many ways, and you can do it many different ways. But like I say, there's other ways of doing this. I mean, the old-fashioned way is eBay. eBay is e-commerce, and that's on the very individual level, So it just depends on what your approach is and what you're looking for in e-commerce. Another thing that I realized in the course of doing this, you hear a lot about China cracking down on their companies. And let me tell you, the reason China is cracking down is because they need some cracking down. Intellectual property being stolen in China has been a problem for years that the United States has complained to China about. And Jack Ma, he claims that sometimes the fabricated goods are better than the originals. So, but it's China's been very loose with this in the past as far as intellectual property rights, copyright rights, that sort of things. And they've been very loose about that. And what China is doing is trying to shape their companies up. I think sometimes they're cracking down because they want them to follow stricter standards, which the United States also wants them to do as far as accounting goes. But also the intellectual property thing is very strict. The thing that China worries about, probably overly worries about, is privacy of their citizens. That somehow they're worried that companies over here are going to collect all kinds of that, and even their own big corporations are going to collect too much data and violate the privacy of their citizens. So when you look, I mean, some of the things, the reason they're not high on video companies so much is they don't want their kids playing video games for more than a couple hours a day. Okay. In this country, we sort of let it go a little bit more, although I know parents try to put some guidelines on that for their kids because they don't want that to happen. But I've worked with kids for years, and this is not professional advice. This is my personal opinion, which may not be shared and probably is not shared by the majority of professionals. But I would tend not to worry about a kid being on a computer unless it was just taken to the extreme. Can you imagine limiting Elon Musk If you had Elon Musk as a child, do you want to limit him on the computer? I don't. He has Asperger's, and I know many people with Asperger's, and they like the computer and they get a lot out of it, and that is their world in so many ways. Now, they need to supplement it with other parts, but again, I think you want to be careful about restricting kids' access to computers in a day and age where the computer is just becoming very important. You might, I know people and relatives whose main job ended up they went through school, got the PhD, they got a postdoc, and they ended up working with computers. you know. So I think the computer route. I know people that had no formal schooling, that they hung out on the computer all the time, and now they are the vice president of a computer company. It's just how much do you want to box your child in, especially if they have a talent in that particular area. And this is not a professional or personal or financial advice. This is just an expression of my own views and what I think of Shopify and Etsy. But I think Etsy is my favorite. I think it's more on the path that I want to follow. Researching this helped me understand Shark Tank a lot better. What that must be like just giving them dessert, that they get to interview people that have a product, and usually that they've been screened, so there's some kind of credibility to the product. I can see why sometimes at Shark Tank they will fight over someone with a new product. This is what people are looking for. This is what you need. You need a basis of your own products to sell, which can be supplemented with drop shipping. And Etsy is starting to do that a little bit, but I think they got to be careful that it doesn't become the majority of their business, because they will lose the character of their business. I bet there's a lot of people that when they look at all the drop shipping and things involved, would tend to favor Etsy if they have their own personal product. The question with Shopify is, why do you need their website? I mean, it's more convenient, and they can handle payment processing, and they can do the shipping, and you can arrange to have the drop shippers shipped to them, and however it's done. It can be arranged. It just sounds like more of a hassle than Amazon. I guess I'm just more familiar with Amazon. But the question that would come to me if I was in a business, more of a small business situation trying to do this, is why not just go directly to Amazon and sell from there? You would avoid a lot of the cost by going directly to Amazon, I think. When looking at the chart, we can see that it's going for $1,504. Shopify, it also has a price to earnings ratio of 77, which is actually kind of reasonable for an explosive growth company like this. But as you look at the chart, you can see that it's had a rough ride. And that's the way I've experienced it. The price just hasn't done much. I've kind of dabbled in and out of it. And ultimately, I got out of it just because I liked Etsy better. And when you have two competing investments, my thought is always to put it into the better of the two. When looking at the chart on Etsy, we can see that it's a much smaller company. Etsy is 27 billion versus Shopify's 188 billion market cap. So, you're much more likely to get explosive, or at least more explosive growth out of Etsy than Shopify in the long run. If we compare Etsy to Shopify over the last year, they've both done well. but Etsy has done somewhat better. It's done about 116%, while Shopify has done about 61%. But they're both major stocks. They're both major growth stocks. I just like Etsy. I think it's going to give us more of that smooth uphill climb that we like to see, and I don't think there's too much danger of it crashing. It's just not that kind of stock. I mean, they have grown gradually and steadily, and they have a loyal fan base or customer base, as I want to call it. So I think I will probably settle in on Etsy and stay there. And Kathy Wood does own both Etsy and Shopify, so we want to remember our patron saint in buying stocks. And if she's buying these stocks, they're probably a good deal. So good luck and keep buying these growth stocks on pullbacks. We're going through a rough September, and I am buying on pullbacks. But I'm being careful and tiptoeing through the stockyard because there's plenty of landmines in there. But I think once we get through these health problems that the country's having, and the country is showing somewhat more resolve to get those behind us, I think the market will take off, and it will pull the e-commerce stocks up significantly. I want to thank you for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe so that you receive future videos. I'm coming out with videos in the future that are going to give you some idea of what the progress is on my various investments as I delve deeper and deeper into these growth stocks. Thanks a lot.